Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. So today we're going to be talking about Wilford Woodruff, and I have a couple quotes from him. And we're going to be talking about the 10 lost tribes being removed from the earth, like separated from this earth on their own piece of land, essentially. Kind of like what we were talking about just a little while ago about the City of Enoch. And he actually talks about the City of Enoch too, being removed from the earth, like not just the people, but the land. And I'm doing this because I want to do my due diligence. I don't want to ignore things that don't go along with the way that I think. I want to collect it all, and I'm open to change. And ultimately, what I care about is what actually happens. I'm okay if there's ambiguity or if there's conflicts between different prophets or apostles on these little points of doctrine that don't really matter as far as our salvation is concerned. I'm okay with not knowing the answer. But I want to collect it all. And then after doing that, I kind of feel one way or the other. So I was looking at this. I pulled this up a while ago. I can't even remember why at this point. This is archive.org. And it's like a typed up version of Wilford Woodruff journal selections. And I just did a search. I was just like searching for different things on here, and I decided to do 10 tribes, and I came across this. And so I wanted to go to the primary source as usual. And so I did. So let's go ahead and read what this says. We're going to go to Wilford Woodruff papers, which is similar to the Joseph Smith papers. It has support from the church history department. I looked into that before, but this is put together by a couple different foundations having to do with Wilford Woodruff. And, but it's very similar. It has like a collection of all of his papers and documents and journals and stuff like that. So I love these type of websites, and I'm glad that we have access to them now. Okay, so this is a journal entry for September 25th, 1859. It was a Sunday. I was unwell. John Taylor preached in the morning, Joseph Young in the afternoon, and Wilford Woodruff spoke upon the subject of the coming fair. I met with the 12 in the evening. Orson Hyde prayed. Orson Pratt was mouth. It was the first time Elder Hyde has met with us for some time. He's been absent for some 3 weeks in consequence of hearing that there was some warrants out for him. Yeah, so you kind of got to get out of Dodge when, they're trying to arrest you. The evening was spent in conversing upon the subject of the 10 tribes in the North Country, the higher law of God in opposition to the law of gravitation. Okay, so here we go. We're talking about lifting up off the earth, defying the law of gravity, or I guess better said, operating under a higher law in which you're not constrained by gravity. So the subject of the 10 tribes in the North Country, the higher law of God in opposition to, to the law of gravitation in the ascension of Christ, Elijah, and Enoch, and the city of Zion, or the city of Enoch, city of holiness, has a few different names, to heaven upon the same principle, a portion of the North Country containing the 10 tribes may be separated from the earth. So here, he's pretty specifically saying a portion of like the land, because he's not referring to people with this sentence, a portion of the North Country containing the 10 tribes may be separated from the earth. Orson Hyde and others believed they would soon return. And so that's it. And so I put that on my spreadsheet. I have a bunch of different quotes spreadsheets. Most of them are on the quotes A through Z by topic, but some of them I have to make their own spreadsheet because in the case of the 10 lost tribes, it seems that interpretation of the scriptures having to do with them, the interpretations have changed over time. I don't know if I believe it's simply more revelation has been received. the Lord reveals things line upon line, precept upon precept. We don't know everything right at the very beginning. We don't know everything now. There's going to continue to be things revealed into the millennium. We've talked about that in other videos. So anyway, so I have this spreadsheet, and there is a pattern. Let me just remind you. So in column C, I have it color-coded either green, yes, the 10 lost tribes are a main group, still together, hidden somewhere, hidden from the world, or if it's red, like when you come up here to more modern times, then it's against that idea. That's simply the 10 tribes are primarily north of Israel, like in the European countries, but also scattered throughout the world. And so there's kind of like a conflict. And then there's certain scriptures that are used to support the idea of a main group of the 10 lost tribes still existing today. But these scriptures are interpreted in other ways. And that's why I have some of these other quotes here. Okay, so again, I'm okay with either way being the truth. If suddenly the 10 lost tribes come from outer space, then fine. And that sounds incredible. It sounds exciting. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I'm not just going to throw out everything that's been said. But you do have to reconcile the two interpretations, the two opinions, the two things that are being said. Either they're a main group hidden somewhere, regardless of size. Either there's a hidden group, regardless of size, somewhere, or there's not. It's one or the other. So anyway, so we have that. I have a couple more things though, because this whole idea that they were, so here in column E, if the quote supports the idea that they're in some other location, I wanted to keep track of where that person said that they were. So in this case, off world somewhere, like on their own, I guess like planet or mini planet or something like that. That's not always the case. I have I have a couple, one from Benjamin F. Johnson, an early church member who said that Joseph Smith said that they were in the North Polar region. And then I have another one from Orson Pratt who said the same thing. So on my spreadsheet, those are the two locations that have been mentioned. Either they're in the North Polar region or they're off-world. Or they went to the polar region and then from there, they then went off-world. So that's another possibility. Okay, so this reminded me of something that many of you have sent to me. There's a hymn, and in this case, I'm looking at the 1863 hymn book. There's a number of different editions, but the one that I was able to find on archive.org is the 1863 hymn book. And it doesn't say it here, but I'll just take your guys' word for it that this hymn was written by Eliza R. Snow. Why does this look all weird? Okay, here we go. That's why. Okay, so we're looking at Sacred Hymns and Spiritual Songs for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 12th edition, 1863. And so if you go to page 386, which is hymn 322, let's just read it. There's two parts, the first part and second part, and then you have all these verses. I'm just going to read this first part because the second part really doesn't have to do with it so much. Okay, I'll zoom in more. Thou earth wast once a glorious sphere of noble magnitude, and didst with majesty appear among the worlds of God. But thy dimensions have been torn asunder piece by piece, and each dismembered fragment borne abroad to distant space. Okay, so in other words, parts of the earth have been taken off from time to time and then taken somewhere in distant space. When Enoch could no longer stay amid corruption here, part of thyself was borne away to form another sphere. So it's like part of Earth pulled away and became its own planet or maybe moon or something like that. That portion where his city stood he gained by right approved, and nearer to the throne of God, his planet upward moved. And when the Lord saw fit to hide the quote unquote 10 lost tribes away, thou earth wast severed to provide the orb on which they stay. And thus from time to time thy size has been diminished till thou seemest the law of sacrifice created to fulfill. Okay? So again, it's a hymn. It's written by Eliza R. Snow, and I can only assume that she would compose this based on what she heard the brethren talk about, and we have an example of that in what we just read from Wilford Woodruff. And so she composed this hymn. And so I have this on the spreadsheet too. In fact, it's not, well, this is the 12th edition. I don't know when the first edition was put out. That may take further research. And by the way, credit to Chad Palmer, because he was the first one that let me know about this. I have this email right here. He also included a lot of other things. I think a lot of this I already have, but I'll have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and make sure I have everything here put on here. This is a long-term project, just like everything else that I'm doing. So please be patient with me as I compile everything. And sometimes I have other priorities over, something like this, the 10 Lost Tribes. Okay, so here's two new entries. And this one's 1859 from Wilford Woodruff. And then we have the 12th edition of this hymn book, 1863. Okay. And then I do have another one. If we scroll up, and by the way, just like my other spreadsheets, I'm changing the format. You see these columns right here, F and G. I'm consolidating it all into column H. So everything eventually will look like this right here. Everything will be in the same cell rather than spread out like this. Okay. So the next one is from 1879. This one is a little more ambiguous. That's why I have it in the light green, because he essentially talks about scriptures that have to do with the 10 lost tribes. But again, the language of the scriptures can be interpreted different ways. Again, that's why we have all these different Christian denominations that say, just look to the Bible, just look to the Bible. Well, not everybody agrees with what it says. And in the case of the 10 lost tribes, when you look throughout time, not everybody agrees that it's a main group. So with him using the language from the scriptures directly, this now more time has gone by and he may or may not believe that there's a main group. So it kind of leans more toward there being a main group, but it's not that explicit. Okay, so for this one, we need to go to the Millennial Star. This was a paper that was published in the United Kingdom, Monday, April 21st, 1879. Epistle of Elder Wilford Woodruff. And then, if I remember right, it's down here. Okay, Lamanites. Okay. Could I speak to the 10 tribes of Israel in the north country? I would say, call upon the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that your prophets may come in remembrance before God, that they may hear his voice and no longer stay themselves, but smite the rocks, that the mountains of ice may flow down at their presence. In highway, okay, quote, in highway shall be cast up in the midst of the great deep, end quote. And by the way, just really quick, this is from Doctrine and Covenants, and when you look at the footnotes, it takes you to Isaiah, and it seems that the highway, because some people will read this and think it's a literal, like, landmass or something that comes up out of the sea that provides a highway for the 10 tribes to walk down and come to the United States, which again, I don't know, that could be. But when you take that and compare it with Isaiah, it seems to be referring to the covenant path, the way of righteousness. Like you're off the path, you're on the path, the covenant path. Okay, their enemies shall become a prey unto them. Bring forth your records and rich treasures unto the children of Ephraim, the servants of the Lord, in the land of Zion. And the boundaries of the everlasting hills shall tremble at your presence. And you shall fall down and be crowned with glory, even in Zion, by the hands of the servants of God, even the children of Ephraim. And you shall be filled with songs of everlasting joy. Behold, this is the blessing of the everlasting God upon the tribes of Israel, and the richer blessings upon the head of Ephraim and his fellows. And so that's it. It's basically all the same stuff that we already know. There's nothing really new in this, but I have to make sure that I record it. So here it is. One thing to consider, I bring this up from time to time. I have this anonymous poll that I've put out. So far, there's 1,427 people that have responded to the poll. And the question is, what is your tribe based on your patriarchal blessing? And here's the breakdown. Now, this is only my English-speaking audience. It's not a worldwide sample. I wish it was. I'm sure it would look somewhat different from this. But you can see we do have all the tribes. If you click on question, it breaks it down, and it has all the tribes. Ephraim with the most, 1,259, and then Manasseh. That's not too surprising. I hate having to explain this every single time. Some people in their patriarchal blessing, their lineage is declared only through Joseph rather than his sons Ephraim or Manasseh. I don't know why that is. And then for some people, only Abraham, even though Abraham is not one of the tribes. He is the great grandfather of the sons of Jacob. So that's just how it is. And then you have Benjamin, Judah, and Levi. And those three tribes put together are typically what we think of as Jews. The Jews of today are made up primarily of those three tribes. And then you have the other ones. Asher is next, and then Dan, Gad, Reuben, Naphtali, Issachar, Simeon, and Zebulun. Got them all at this point. I'll put the link for this in the description box below if you haven't taken it already. So this is just an interesting thing. It just shows that we do have the other tribes with us today. And that's the point of view that I take. Oh, before we go too much further, I've added this quote about the city of Enoch to this right here. Row 125, Enoch, city of Enoch, land or no land. So we just read this one from Wilford Woodruff. We have this from Brigham Young. This is from the Wilford Woodruff papers, and it's in another journal. And he said it says it was the opinion of the prophet Joseph. So this is Brigham Young talking. Brigham Young says, it was the opinion of the prophet Joseph that the city of Enoch was in the Gulf of Mexico, and that Adam offered his sacrifice and built his first altar in Adam-on-Diamond, and the stones of his altar are there now to be seen. The city of Enoch was taken up, but the city of Zion, which we shall build, will remain and not be taken away as his city was. Noah was 120 years in building an ark. We have not been 40 years yet in building up Zion in our day and the kingdom of God on the earth. And then the other one that I have now, this is in chronological order. The older quotes are to the right, more recent ones to the left. This is what Bruce R. McConkie said in the September 1977 Liahona. After the Lord's people were translated, this is referring to the city of Enoch, for it was people who were caught up into heaven, not brick and mortar or in stone, for there are better homes already in heaven than men can build on earth. After these righteous saints went to dwell beyond the veil, others, being converted and desiring righteousness, looked for a city which hath foundation, whose builder and maker is God, and they too were caught up by the powers of heaven in Zion. So his quote would make it seem that it was not land that was taken up. So again, I don't know. I would tend to go with that. I feel like that makes more sense, but I'm okay not knowing for sure. I'm going to take it all together, and I think that's what we should all do, and we should be comfortable not having everything revealed right now. I think it's fine, and just maybe lean one way or the other. Now back to this. One other thing that I want to point out is column D right here. Those now living will see it. And this is one of the main reasons why I feel like there isn't a main group. Okay. So there are a number of speakers that have said that you will live to see the 10 lost tribes come. The first of which was Joseph Smith in 1833. He says here, "For there are those now living upon the earth whose eyes shall not be closed in death until they see all these things." So that's from Joseph Smith. This is a quote where he talks about the 10 lost tribes and the North Country. And there's nobody alive from that time. And I don't think that Joseph Smith was wrong. I think that people have seen the 10 lost tribes come, and it's like this. I think it's simply this. That's just my opinion, but that's how those two things go together. Sometimes people will say, well, maybe he meant, the three Nephites and John. And I mean, I don't know. I guess it doesn't seem like that's really the spirit of what he's saying. It seems like he's talking to those people that are there, and it's not just like a loophole type answer, but I suppose that's possible. Orson Pratt said it. There are those that are now living that will see the 10 lost tribes come. That was 1875. You have this one from John Taylor, 1880. And then I think the most recent one, you have James E. Talmage, who said it twice. And so that's possible. But at this point, those people are pretty old. I can't remember how old is, oldest living person. It's Maria Brunius Morera. Okay, so you have Maria Brunius, who was born in 1907, right? And James E. Talmage said this in 1916, in 1919, and then he's the last one to have said it, to have made a statement like that. But the thing is that before that point, you had these other prophets and apostles that said the same thing, and at this point, it's not possible. There's nobody alive from the 1880s, for example, with John Taylor. So I don't know. It's kind of complicated, and I know we all have our preferences and our own mental constructs of how things are or how they're supposed to be, or our interpretations of scripture. But here you go. And I know that there's going to be more that I add to this over time. Feel free to send it to me, but again, I can't guarantee I'll get to it in a timely manner. This is just, it takes a long time. So anyway, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.